Hey everyone, good morning. It's great to be here. I think this is the first time Meta has collaborated with ROAS, so thanks a lot. It's an honor to be here and probably just share our POV on how we think the digital ecosystem is evolving within the universe of Meta and how omni-channel retailers can actually leverage Meta a lot more as we go along. So I've got 15 minutes. I'll try and stick to the headlines that I want to cover. And I'm here after that to catch up if anybody wants to double click on any specific aspect of it. Okay, so I lead the retail industry and the omnichannel industry in India, and really what we've tried to bring up is three key things here. What is the evolving landscape and like large trends that we're seeing on digital and on Meta? What is our role really in the omnichannel world? And therefore, what are the opportunities for the omnichannel marketer, right? And I probably do recognize not everybody here in the room is from the marketing function of their particular organization. So maybe I'll try and frame this in a way where you can go back and ask the right questions to your marketing teams, right? Okay, with that, just a quick snapshot of, again, the ecosystem in India, right? We've got a family of apps that we talk about, which is Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. We've also got Threads now, which is obviously launched a few months ago, and I'm guessing a few of y'all in the room are on Threads, but this is sort of the user base that it covers, right? Today, there are 70 crore plus Indians on Meta, and nearly 70 plus are from tier 2 plus cities, right? Now, if you really break this down, I think if you go right to left, WhatsApp is sort of ubiquitous for, in a way, a proxy for the number of internet users in India. It's really the first app that people install once they get their smartphone. And eventually then we sort of see them come into Facebook and Instagram. Specifically since COVID, I think Instagram has been on an absolute tear. We launched a product called Reels, which is basically known for short form video. And I think that's led a lot of user growth in India across tier 2, tier 3. Now, so while that's the numbers, I think the story behind the numbers is actually more important, which is what are all of these people doing on the platform? Because fundamentally what we're seeing is time spent across our platform is going up. And therefore, as a result, as an omnichannel player, it's also very important for you to tap into these trends that you're seeing, right? And really there are three big things. One is that there's an absolute explosion of short form video. What we're seeing is that if you look around and look back at how Facebook started, Instagram started, these were really photo-led platforms to start. But behavior has completely shifted, and today what we're seeing is greater than 60% of time spent across these platforms is on video. And therefore, for brands and retailers, the question really is how much of their marketing assets are video-led versus photos, right? That's how I would like to look at it. The second big thing is that creators, which is what we call influencers, they really become super important in influencing purchase and discovery, right? It's no longer just that today, as a retailer, I'll put my brand message out there. That alone isn't enough, but the question really is how do you back it up with influencers reinforcing the same message? So again, the question to ask your marketing teams is, are you using influencers to back up your message along with your brand message? And the third big one, which I think was also covered in the previous talk, was about WhatsApp, right? The big move to messaging and about how 90% of online adults in India message a business once a week. So the question really is, as an omnichannel retailer, if let's say an app isn't something that you would natively build, can WhatsApp be that app for you, right? That does a lot of your customer engagement, transactions, discovery of products as well. So there's really three different things that I'll speak to each of these as we go along, but these are the headlines really. Now, all of this is, of course, powered by AI. I think it's the big theme and the big sort of like buzzword right now, but just to make it a little more real, right? Like how does AI really come in and tap into different things? Fundamentally, what you'll see is on Meta, in Instagram in India, there are 6 million reels created by people in India every day, right? That's a mind-boggling number. But if you look at one feed versus the other, what you really see is no two feeds are the same, right? Your reels that one person sees versus the other is vastly different, right? Based on your own interests and whatnot. That's exactly where AI really comes in, where we really customize and allow you to discover things based on your interest. And therefore, you're seeing all of the stats that follow after that, which is fundamentally greater than 50% of time spent on Instagram is on video, is on reels. More importantly, more than 50% of people who watch a reel also are more likely to tap into a business profile. And that also leads to, therefore, consumption on the back of it, right? So that was very quickly about the ecosystem and about Meta. Now, what is our role in an omnichannel world? What are the big things that we're seeing here as well? Fundamentally, we think we're very well positioned to help you across your business, and that's really across three different fronts, right? One is we've got the largest messaging app globally. We've got a very, very powerful discovery engine, right? And I'll just try and make that a little real for everyone here. If you'll notice, I'm using a large number of people in the room are on Facebook and Instagram. Think back to like the last 5 times you shopped via an ad, via these platforms. were you really looking for that product, or did you land up stumbling on something that you liked but you didn't know you wanted? Right? More often than not, that I see a few smiles in the audience. More often than not, that's what happens, and that's what we call today discovery commerce, right? Which is people are not waiting for a moment or an event to shop; they're really always shopping. So how do you feed into that? Really, is the question. And thirdly, again, how does AI and machine learning come in to bring all of this all together? Now, when we look at Meta versus other platforms that help drive discovery, what we've seen is that about 84% of shoppers surveyed have made at least one purchase in store after finding or discovering the product on social media. And I'll talk about, therefore, as an omni-channel retailer, what you can do to drive that discovery, but this is just some interesting stats that we've seen, right? If you compare, again, Meta versus other platforms, across our family of apps, 74% are more likely to discover a product or service via Meta versus the other platforms. And again, this is a very interesting concept that we've seen really come through post-COVID, a concept called what we call Webrooming, which is the number of people who start their journey online and eventually land up coming in store. We've seen almost a 2x jump in people doing that, right? And I'm sure most of us in the room do exactly that. How many of you all are sometimes at a fashion store looking at a product, but also go back, look at it online before deciding what you want to buy, and vice versa, right? It always sort of happens. Now, the reason this is important is because what we've done based on our research, we've seen that these customers are actually more valuable to businesses. And if you look at their journey along the way, apart from just discovery, what we've seen on the purchase bucket is that users that browse online and then shop in store are 34% more likely to order a higher value product. They're 70% more likely to come back and make more frequent purchases. Which means that's the incentive for all the omnichannel retailers out there, which is build good destinations for your customers to discover you, to shop on you, and eventually they could come in store as well and buy, but they essentially become a lot more valuable the minute you do that. Now, therefore, what are really the opportunities for the omnichannel marketer? How do one leverage all of these trends, leverage these insights to build something of value that eventually can help your business? So we have a playbook that we've developed along with retailers across the world, including retailers in India, and three key things to it really, right, which is three buckets: performance, connection, and creativity. For this conversation today, I'll just focus on performance and connection, and then I'll just spend a couple of minutes on each of these, and we'll start with performance. Now, this is basically, think of this as your base, as your foundation, to allow you to go ahead and attract more digitally influenced shoppers, right? And the first thing there is, how are you able to send certain data back to Meta to understand and measure your digitally influenced store sales, but also double down on it, right? We've already established the value of doing that, but therefore, how do you do it and how do you do it well? Second, I think a lot of traditional media, of course, is used, and again, please continue doing that, but the question really is, how do you augment that and boost it on Meta as well? That's the big question, and again, we've done a few very interesting experiments with leading retailers that I'll show you all right now. So I think this is the first thing. This is basically the foundation, which is, we have a product called Conversions API. I'm not sure how much of that is visible, but I'll just try and break it down. This allows you to actually, so on campaigns that you run on Meta, the question really is, how do you understand what is digitally influenced store sales? So if you actually go and just send your order data, CRM data in store back to Meta, obviously all of this is in a hashed privacy first manner, so we can't read any data itself. We're able to attribute for every campaign how much of digitally influenced store sales we were able to drive, and how much of that journey really started on Meta in the first place, right? So I think the question I would ask you is, to your chief information officer, to your CMOs, do you all have Conversions API for offline integrated for your business? That's the first question to ask. The other advantage of doing that is that you can actually then create cohorts of these audiences and target them on Meta. So therefore, you can have a cohort that says somebody who shopped in my store for the last 6 months, somebody who's not shopped actually in the last 6 months, but has shopped from 7 to 12 months. I want to come back and I want to get them back to my store. Right? So these are the multiple things that you can actually do on the back of it. You can also find lookalike audiences, which is, you can tell our system that, hey, this is a certain profile, this is a certain age group, this is a certain demographic. Help me find more such customers. Right? So that's the other benefit that you can also do. The second thing, which I think is probably some of the more highlights and my favorite stuff that I want to talk about, which is, how do you leverage your TV and print efforts to actually augment it on Meta to drive better impact for your business? So this was something that we did with a large grocery player, which is basically BigBasket. I'm sure we've all heard of them. They're super heavy on print, like any grocery player would be. We actually went to them with a very interesting proposition that said, let's assume you do print pan-India, or let's just say top 30, 40 cities that you're present in. What would happen if you take a subset of those 4 or 5 cities and add meta on top, because if you really think about why someone does print, they do it for very, very high impact in a short window. It's basically for a weekend, right? So can you recreate that sort of moment on meta as well and see if that does anything for your business? And over a series of like 8 to 10 different experiments where if you think about the creatives, what we really did was try to recreate the look and feel of print with the pamphlet, with those particular SKUs, with the offers, call out the key KPIs that they really cared about, which is the same day delivery, to understand what does that really do for you. And what we saw was quite cool actually. We saw like a 2x lift in traffic. So a 31% lift in traffic for cities with print plus meta versus a 14% lift in cities with print alone. So we saw basically a 2x traffic. Now, if you contextualize this to basically CPMs on our platform, right, for the marketers in the room, fundamentally our CPMs are quite affordable, and therefore it becomes really, really cheap, where the BigBasket team came back and told us that these campaigns on Meta in a way actually pay for itself because of just how cheap it is. The second thing that they saw was they saw 5 to 7% higher sales for cities with print plus Meta and a 10% higher order volume. So it will impact across the funnel on traffic, on sales, on order volume as well. So again, the question to ask your marketers out there and your teams is, whenever you have a print campaign, how can we go ahead and augment that on Meta as well? And again, just to paraphrase, nobody's saying it needs to be pan-India. It can totally be just in 2, 3, 4 cities in the geos you really care about for a particular business at that point. Experiment first and measure. I think the one big thing that we like to instill with all the clients we work with is, how do you measure what you're doing and how is that really successful for your business before you decide to scale it up? This is again a very interesting one. I'm sure a lot of us in the room run brand tracks for our business, and maybe that brand track is Kantar because they're the largest in the country. I'm not sure how many people are aware, but you also get channel-wise impact on the back of all your campaigns via Kantar. There's a particular technology called cross media, so you can integrate Kantar with cross media, and it can actually tell you, this is the impact of my mind metrics and brand campaigns, but more importantly, this is what each channel is doing for me. So we actually work with a very large jewelry retailer, and what you will see on the right is exactly that, right? It's a pretty cool chart that says share of impact and the impact of those spends fundamentally. And what you will see is TV, obviously, which is usually the channel that has the highest budgets, had about 45% of the budgets here and had about 50% impact as well, right? Print had a 5% impact share, but about 45% of spends. Meta, on the other hand, had a 4% spend share, but 40% impact share, right? Therefore, you're getting a lot more bang for your buck. And of course, this could vary for every campaign, but generally, this is sort of what we see. And therefore, again, the question I would ask you to go back and ask your marketers is, if you have a brand track, and if you've got Kantar integrated with them, can you go ahead and run a cross media on top of this yourself as well, to see and understand what's really working for you? So that was the first big bucket which I covered, which is performance. The second one is largely on connection, which is how do you use WhatsApp. And I know WhatsApp is top of mind for a lot of people in the room, for a huge number of Indians as well. And we've got some very cool examples of how retailers have worked to drive omni-channel impact on WhatsApp as well. Now, just some quick context before I get in, right? I think we all know that WhatsApp provides use cases across the entire funnel. From, let's say, if you're an existing customer to a business, you can go back to that customer and tell them, hey, you've got a new product line launching. You can actually have assisted shopping enabled there. You can book an appointment. There are multiple things that you can do. You can also get leads along the way. You can also offer customer support, right? So the use cases are really across the entire marketing funnel. Now, we worked with Tanishq, right, which is like the largest jewelry retailer in the country, to pioneer something called click to WhatsApp to basically drive store sales, right? And I have a video as well to sort of just show you how we actually designed this from the ground up. It's never been done before in India, where you fundamentally close the loop on digital to physical. And I'll just talk through and take a minute and explain how we did this. So we have an ad product called ads that click to WhatsApp. These are ads that show up on Facebook and Instagram, and you'll just see a video that plays in a second. So that's a video an ad that played on Instagram. It then goes to WhatsApp, where fundamentally we incentivize the user to start a chat, and on the back of that, try and find out which is their nearest store. And Tanishq had an entire festival of dreams sale going on at that point in time. And what we really did was ask the user what's their nearest store. We then went ahead and gave them a coupon code personalized to that user for that particular store itself, right? Now, what that did for Tanishq at the end of the day is, because the minute this chat gets initiated via their CRM channels, and I see Carix is a messaging partner, so you should ask them as well, because they actually helped us build this for Tanishq. All the retailers will get that phone number itself, right? And therefore, you can go back and cross-reference that phone number with your sales data at your backend in your stores to actually see how many people saw that ad, interacted with WhatsApp, and eventually came to your store and shopped. Right? And the results that we got here are quite mind-boggling, actually. They generated about 9,000 leads, 180 buyers, 4 crore in-store revenue, and a ROAS about 14x. Right? So they basically invested not more than 20-25 lakhs as a pilot, and that's the kind of returns that they actually got on the back of it. We did something very similar for Chroma as well. They came to us with a very specific challenge of saying, hey, how do we drive up a specific category sales in specific geos in a vernacular way, right? So we were inspired by the example of Tanishq and really built out a similar journey for them. Again, the overall results are quite cool. They saw a 3% uplift in store footfalls entirely, right, through click to WhatsApp. So that's a massive impact for just their store uplift. They saw that 9% of all store orders had a click to WhatsApp coupon intervention. Right? So that's kind of the impact that it's had. 50% of the click to WhatsApp shoppers were new to Chroma, and that was very, very important for them because they wanted to really use this to drive new customer acquisition. And I'm sure different retailers, because of the onslaught of e-commerce, quick commerce, are seeing this happen, which is your pace of new customer acquisition is probably slowing down. Therefore, how do you really put the foot on the pedal and get that back again? And that's sort of what we had. This is, I think, a very good example of how do you pretty much bring everything together as per what I just showed you right now, which is, let's assume you have a print campaign that you're doing. You can actually integrate WhatsApp right into that print campaign by having just a QR code to say, hey, receive offers on WhatsApp itself. That will then go ahead, and if somebody smashes that QR code, you see a chat initiated right there. So again, you can design all of these things very, very uniquely and innovatively. And I think fundamentally this is the summary, right? Which is how do you really unlock growth for your brands? And if I take it back to how I started this off, which is we're seeing a huge uptick in number of users across our platforms. These users are really spending time on 3 things. Short form video, make sure you have that in your campaigns. Influencers, again, very, very important. I didn't get a chance to double click on that today, but again, that's a whole different topic to talk about. And the third one really will be about messaging and WhatsApp. Now, to do all of this well, it's very, very important to have the foundation right, which is first implement Conversions API to be able to tap into and understand the impact of digitally influenced store sales, which allows you to then also target very, very uniquely different cohorts out there. And then finally, leveraging Meta in combination with both TV and print to maximize really the efficiency that you're getting for those campaigns. And finally, then using click to WhatsApp for both lead gens and hyperlocal. That's all I had. Thank you.
Hi, Devesh. Morning. Thank you so much for that presentation. Pretty intense numbers. I just needed your help in understanding how do you, I mean, to what extent can you, individualize lookalike customers?
When you say individualize, you mean?
In terms of the amount of metadata that you would have for those customers, okay. for the brand to, then really work on it.
Yeah, so I think the starting point is anywhere from like 1 million is what we'd expect you to feed into the system, 500,000 to 1 million. It can actually be lesser than that as well, but really the function of putting in that base is because you want to churn out a large enough audience as well for it to be a lookalike. And that lookalike can go from anywhere from 1% to 10%. So it could be literally a 1:1 ratio of your feed coming back to a lookalike of that or 10x of that. Generally what we say is at least put in a few lakh customers as a base, and eventually then you can come back and go ahead and get a multiple of that as an audience that you can target as well.
Okay, I'll double click on that later with you.
Sure.
Very quick one. You talked about print plus media and print alone.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued to figure out as to how do you isolate print alone cities?
So let's assume you do print in 10 cities. You can just choose to add Meta in 3 or 4 of those cities.
But how do you do that? I thought Meta was everywhere.
So you can actually run, so when you're running campaigns on Meta, you can choose at the time of buying which cities you want those campaigns to run in. So you could limit it to literally just that city that you want.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
No worries.
Quick one now. Most of these seem to be examples of large enterprise customers. Do you have any value propositions for the small and medium retailers as well?
Yeah, I think if you think about any omnichannel retailer today, again, we can deep dive into that maybe in a separate session sometime on the line, but if I think of Rare Rabbit, that comes to mind, right? They literally started off on our platform, digital only, before they went ahead and built their offline channel and made it a large omnichannel business today. But a lot of these brands were really seeded on Meta doing exactly what we said, and eventually today they're at the scale that they're at. So I think of these as, while these are enterprise examples, and the reason we put that here is because you guys can associate with the names and therefore get inspired, but the approach can actually be done across the board for any retailer, which is start small, test at maybe like a city level, understand what works, back it up with robust measurement, and really question your legacy methods of doing things, right? Nobody's saying don't do print or TV, but figure out in combination what works better, figure out in isolation what works better, how much does it work better, and then eventually fine tune and expand beyond that 1, 2, 3 cities that you're in.